In this video, I am going to talk about the use of Datastudio with the GLX and a force sensor. Right now I have a force sensor connected to the GLX, as you can see here, but I don't yet have a graph. So what I can do is I can click and drag this force over to the graph option on the displays and move it out here a little bit. And I'll click start collecting some data. And all I'm doing is I'm pushing the force sensor with my finger so you can see that it's actually working there. And I'll click stop. A couple nice features you might want to use in Datastudio are the first button here, which is scale to fit, which basically increases the size of the scale of the axis so I can see the entire graph. I can always zoom in, zoom out. And one other feature here is the Smart tool, which lets me actually move onto the graph to take a look at data points. I can look at 2 seconds, 2.1 seconds. So it looks like I'm collecting data every tenth of a second, and these are my force values there, 3.8, 18.7, 26.5, and so forth. So I can move around like that, which is a nice feature. I'll uncollect that. Looks like I'm missing some data points. In other words, there's a big jump from here. I see it's kind of choppy from there. So in order to get more data, I can increase the sampling rate. Right now it was collecting 10 samples per second, which made sense because I saw data points every tenth of a second. Let me go up to, let's say, 40 hertz or 40 samples a second and see what happens. So I'll click start, and you can see there's many more dots, and I'm pressing the button and I get a little finer detail there. When you collect multiple trials, you're going to have overlapping graphs, and this may get a little hard to look and analyze. So you can do one of two things. You can either actually go to the graph and click on, let's say I'll get rid of run number 1. Press the delete button on the keyboard and remove it, which gets rid of the data. Although it's still in Datastudio right here. Run number 1 is still there. I can click and drag it back over. Let me get rid of it again. Or if I have a run that I completely do not want and I want to completely eliminate it permanently, I can click over here and press delete and get rid of it, so it no longer exists. If I want to get a little bit different look at the data, I can always click table, drag the run to over here to table, and I get a table view of the data. So just as an example, I can take a look at this and I can say right before 1 second it looks like it's at 0. So right before 1 second it's at 0. So if I scroll down this list a little bit, 0.67, and you can see here right about 0.95, 0.97 seconds I can see the data. So this is another way to view the data. You can always use the Smart tool, as we saw earlier, to take a look at data points. But the table view is sometimes nice. You can see all the data at once. I'll click and close that. Remove that. A couple other features are slopes and areas. If I click the slope tool, where it says m equals something, I can click and I can actually just move it around with the cursor keys, and it'll tell me the slope at different points in the graph. And another feature is the area tool. And if I click and drag a certain area or a certain region, it'll tell me the area under the curve. And for different applications, the area means something. So I can hone in on a certain section and take a look at the area under the curve. Right here is the area. It tells me min and max information as well. So I can take a look at that and move that as well. One last feature you might want to use when looking at graphs is moving the scales around and changing the scales of the axes. So if I move my cursor onto a scale and it looks like a hand, I can actually move the graph around, not changing the scale. In other words, not changing the distances or increments of time. And I can do that here as well. But if I move my cursor onto a number, as you can see right here, it's a double pointing arrow, I can actually change the time scale, and I can get a little bit finer look at the time between data points. So this is actually only 6/10 of a second, 0.2 to 1.2, 1.8. But if I stretch it out, I can get a lot better view of the data. And if I want to find the area of that curve, I can go area, and I can click and just get that. So I get a little bit better view of the data. So scaling is a nice little issue, and all you need to do is to put your cursor on a number and drag left or right, move your hand on the axis, and you can actually move the data around. So those are a couple nice features you can use when using the force sensor with the GLX and Datastudio.